Good day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Skytale Insights. Extremely excited for today as we're hosting Skytale's very own Joshua Suchanek as we discuss how do I know if my marketing is working. Joshua has built his own firm. Joshua, you've helped scale other firms. Welcome. Super excited to have you. Why don't you say a little bit about yourself before we get going?
No, I appreciate that. I'm really honored to be here. Honestly, it's been a long time coming. My background historically has been in agency settings, working for multiple agencies over the last 12 years, really doing product development, business development, social media, various marketing functions within the agency setting. Primarily focused in healthcare my entire career, really elective medical, be it plastic surgery, oral surgery, medical aesthetics, cosmetic derm, all the way down to membership-based pediatrician. So we've seen it all in the last 12 years.
Done it all. That's right. I was about to say that. And, again, very excited that you're here. As I was putting some thoughts together on how to do this, so many questions that I have too. And so I know that your advice will be valuable for the audience and, for us as well. So, maybe at a very high level, how do I know if my marketing strategy is working?
I think the funny thing about this question, because we get it so often, right? Like success can sort of feel like an elusive goal. Is it working? And I think at some points, like some of it can feel subjective, right? Because generally when I meet a doctor or like a practice owner in any regard, the question for them is like, how do I know this is working? Like, is my marketing company doing a good job? And it sort of is like not a straight line answer to that. Because I think the first part of it really comes down to, at least in my opinion, is what is the goal of the campaign function? Like, where's the practice at in its cycle? Maybe you're a plastic surgeon who's been in practice for 15, 20 years and you're sort of at capacity, right? Like maybe the only way to really increase revenue in the practice setting is to increase your surgical fees, right? And then you can that would be successful. It's not really a marketing function, right? And so they develop maybe an open and new med spa. They onboard estheticians and injectors. And so their goal, quite frankly, is to build up their med spa. Like that's a goal. And then you meet some people who are bringing on new surgical associates. And the mindset at the time might be, oh, I'm going to bring an associate and I'll give them all my overflow. And then I'll make other income on their surgeries. And then the surgeries don't just come, right? They don't magically fall into their lap. And so I would think that it really starts with making sure that your goals are clearly defined for your marketing partners. And then making sure that they are pulling on that same side of the rope in an effort to accomplish that goal. I can't tell you how often, like in a marketing partnership, how often we lose sight of goal, right? Like we see that happen because they come in maybe with clear instructions of these are the things I want to accomplish. Like I want my rankings to be better. I want my website to look better. And then what happens is along the way, passion projects insert themselves like, oh, we need new branding for our med spa. Like, hey, it'd be great if we had new swag. Like, it'd be great if we did an ad in this magazine. And what happens is based on like the retainer model, what I find is that the hours maybe dedicated to goal get absorbed doing something else, like writing procedure content for things that weren't really a part of the original goal or just doing those projects like we talked about. And I think what happens at the end is the doctor or the practice owner sitting on this side going like, we didn't hit any of my goals. Like there's frustration. And then the marketing team's put in a position to be like, but look at all this other great stuff we did. Right. And that right there. And it's like the truth is they did professional work, right, as part of that retainer. But if they lose sight of goal in the process, then success, I think, is never really actualized. And that's a problematic dynamic between practice and vendor relationships.
It's fascinating you said that as you were answering a few things that obviously you said goal a few times. And really, as you were talking, it really comes down to focus, right? Make sure that you continuously refocus on what your goals are and that everything is with that end in mind. And boy, that's even beyond marketing. I mean, you can mention that about almost anything. So, let's get on that subject a little bit maybe. So I create my goals. You and I talk, I have my goals. Are there how do I make sure I stay focused? Are there any maybe key metrics or otherwise that you can maybe as a team, as an agency with the owner, make sure that you're staying on track?
I think that answer is like largely dependent on, like, could be goal focused. Like, what is the goal of the specific service that they're purchasing, right? And so, very simple. Like, if I want to improve my organic Google rankings because I want more traffic, then you're going to be purchasing an SEO campaign. And the SEO campaign, multiple functions, right? Because it's content strategy, it's directory management, it's online reputation. All these things play together. And so you might look at, how does just the overall visibility of my practice improve? Like, how do my keyword rankings improve over time? And that's really the report card, right, that you're using. If I'm buying an SEO campaign and my rankings don't get better, then it's probably not working, right? Like, very simple. Yeah. Where the goal for like building up branded social media and like taking advantage of social media, those can be different types of goals in and of themselves, right? Because maybe it's just about, hey, I've had social media, I post on it once a week, and like, I don't really care about social. I've never really gotten patients from there, but I need it to be active. Great. You can deploy a keep the lights on strategy where you hire someone to post a couple times a week on your behalf. You're being successful at that point, right? Because that was the goal. But if you go into it saying, like, I just need someone to post social media a couple times a week to keep it active, and then you come back 6 months from now and you're like, well, I'm not generating any patients. That wasn't really the goal of that campaign, was it, right? So it's not a good measuring stick. And so I think that part of the like problem that really exists in marketing, like in healthcare specifically, there's a lot of companies that offer the services. Not a shortage of vendors. You can walk into any major industry meeting and meet a dozen teams that offer similar services, and we're using similar vocabulary, right? The thing that you think that you're buying might not necessarily deliver the intended result if you're not equipped to like negotiate on those points and then articulate your goals clearly, right? And so there's a difference between like, well, we technically optimized a site and we optimized it well. And sometimes those things it's a very fine line that's a little blurry.
Yeah. So, on that note, you mentioned blurry, you mentioned making sure that you can articulate your goals, and there are a myriad of vendors. Like, how do you pick one, or how transparent would you expect an agency to be about, okay, this is what I heard you say on your goals. This is our plan. This is how we're going to stay in touch. This is how we're going to be accountable to one another. How do I pick the right one? Or even if you and I are in a partnership and you're my agency, how do I communicate with you, and how do you communicate with me that we're tracking the goals and here's what we're doing to achieve them? Are we meeting them, or are we not? How do you pick it? How transparent should they be? What should the relationship look like?
Yep. Very, very good question. Because I think that, when you're entrusting a new marketing partner, there's generally, unless of course you're starting a brand new practice and starting from scratch, right? You've probably made a mistake. The average, when I was in an agency setting, the average client we had, they were on their second or even third marketing vendor.
Oh, wow.
So there's like, learning opportunities that come from making mistakes, right? You find things that you maybe didn't know about, and then in your first relationship, you go, well, I don't think I'd make that mistake again, right? And so you become a more seasoned professional, right? Your decision-making refines over time. And so I think that overall, though, when you're vetting a marketing vendor, you should be looking for kind of like a key list of things, if you will. Do they offer the services that are in alignment with the goals that I'm trying to accomplish, right? And very simply, if you're just like, well, I want to improve my social media, so I hire a media development agency to shoot me great photography and video, you might have really world-class looking content, but it's not necessarily going to make your social more focused or powerful, right? Like, it's just, this is resources to support that goal. If you hire an agency that offers world-class like sort of branding and photography on your website, and it looks super fancy, and it like looks a cut above everybody else, well, that's going to give you good brand positioning, but that's like one function, right? Mm-hmm. So I think making sure you're finding someone that has a comprehensive offering, and I think that speaks to being diversified in your marketing focus, right? If you're over-reliant in any one area, like if, we put a ton of money into Google ads, and we've always driven a ton of patients on Google ads, but we outright don't even leverage an SEO strategy, being over-indexed in any area is not necessarily good. And so I think getting into relationships with reputable vendors, which there are many mm-hmm. reputable vendors to choose from. You want someone who focuses on web design, email marketing, search engine optimization, content generation, paid ads on Meta, Google, people who, from a social media perspective, are leveraging multi-channel focuses, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, right? The truth is that all of these things play into a greater sort of like more healthier, diversified marketing program that's going to allow you to drive leads from multiple channels. And so I think when you're picking an agency, picking ones that are, proven time and time again that they are going to be successful because they have a track record of doing that. There's a influencer that I follow, a guy named Alex Hormozi. He's written a couple books.
Oh yeah, I like him. I watch his stuff almost daily.
Yeah, and so he's got a really cool quote that like self-confidence comes from not it's like saying that you're the best, but providing like irrefutable proof over and over again that you are who you say you are. And so I think when you're vetting an agency, finding people that have a proven track record in competitive markets with really reputable providers that you maybe admire or in your social circle, it's a pretty good place to start, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. I actually, while you were talking, had a question of like, okay, what should it look like? You mentioned not being over-indexed, and you touched on that already. And I think, so is it important then, because I don't know what I don't know. I think I know good marketing when I see it, but I don't know. And I'm probably biased towards certain types of marketing. And, I sometimes make the parallel of, if I have a trainer at the gym and I say I want my biceps to look bigger, I don't think that trainer would only work out my biceps, that they would tell me about the full body and so forth and why it helps everything, including the biceps, right? So I heard you say a little bit of that. Should I expect them to guide my strategy as well? Meaning if I came to you and I said, oh, I just want that really cool social media look and bring in the best, camera folks or whatever, are you supposed to guide me on, let's back up, what are we trying to achieve here? Or how would you expect that relationship to evolve?
Two funny points there, like that I think of is because, marketing for a long time, like I've always thought like marketing is a lot like personal training in this regard. Like it's, there's not like a silver bullet. There's not like one quick, like, oh, I flipped this switch, I'm going to be successful. Look at what we accomplished, right? Like it's generally more of a notion of like, hey, like if I show up every day and I eat reasonably well and I pick up heavy things and I put them back down, then like eventually my summer body will be ready, right? And so marketing is a long play. Like I want to start with saying that. And I think in terms of like guidance, like that's where working with professionals really comes into play, because I would say that as a marketing consultant, most of the problems that people come to me with are pretty surface level, right? Like that practice that's right down the street that just opened that we are way more qualified than, they rank better than me. That shouldn't happen, right? Or, hey, I've been paying this person in my office to manage my social media and I'm not seeing my follower count increase, or my rankings are terrible. I don't know what I'm doing, or like my ad spend, I don't even know where it's going. Those are all real problems, but they're like symptoms of like a bigger problem. And that's that we don't have proper like understanding of like what is our total marketing function and how it performs, right? Because like the purpose of the podcast. But I think when we look at that, it really comes down to me for like one thing. I can improve rankings. I might get your ad spend humming to a point that you feel is more efficient, right? I could get you the best looking website. Like I can partner you with a vendor to get you the best looking website imaginable. But at the end of the day, what you really want, the reason you want all those things is you want more new patient leads.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to, right? Like, because if I build you a great website and no new patient leads come,
doesn't help me much.
Well, then I misadvised you, right? Like, because then we didn't accomplish the real goal. And so if you work it down to its simplest point, you want to know how I can generate new patient leads in the most effective, like cost-effective and time-efficient way.
Yeah. And so if that is what I want, what type of, reporting should I hope for or expect from my marketing team and or my agencies? I think about, for example, I'm more on the numbers finance person, and I would expect monthly reporting with financial numbers. What's my profitability? Where am I fat? How are we trending, et cetera? How are we trending to goals? What kind of reporting should I expect in marketing to kind of measure how as you mentioned, it's a long game. So that reporting, I would imagine, would help me see, am I on the right path? Should I turn left? Should I turn right? What should I want out of that?
First and foremost, if you transact dollars with anyone, there should be a level of reporting or accountability, like a level of report back of what's happening, right? So if you're not getting reporting, red flag, like big red flag. Now, whether that reporting is done monthly, bi-weekly, quarterly, right? Like it doesn't really matter. There should be a clear reporting cadence between you and the person that you transact with to help with your marketing. In my case, like I think that there's a lot of companies out there where you get these monthly reports and they may be automated, right? Like maybe they just come to my inbox and then I can open them and go through them at my leisure. To a lot of people, that's sufficient. I personally think that any reporting that you get should be in conjunction with some sort of formal discussion about those results. Like, it doesn't have to be a long call, right? We're not looking for you to dedicate like a half day or even like 2 hours to like an analytics review, but 30 minutes to an hour once a month to like sit down and look at like the data that's being provided and get context around what's happening. I think it's super important. In this regard, I think it's better to over communicate than under communicate.
Yes.
Because people get concerned about what's happening, right? They lose sight of it. And I look at this a lot of times in new website projects. New website projects are exciting, right? Like we're building a new website. Like it's going to be amazing. Like it's going to take us to the next level. Like it's exciting asset. And at the beginning, there's intake questionnaires and branding discovery questions and like, you know, what are your goals for this? And everybody's hyped up. But after the first like 6 weeks, it goes into development. And then it just sits there for like, you know, it doesn't just sit there. They're working really hard on it. But it's like, you know, it's like a month or 2 months sometimes even, depending on the size of their site building. And you're just not really having discussions with them, right? And I find that pretty consistently when I'm in a new website project with somebody where I'm like overseeing it, it's always about that last 2 to 3 weeks before the website launches. And they go, yeah, but what are we doing, right? Like, what have we been doing? Because no one's talking to me. Like, I don't need it. And so in that race, I think it's like over communication is better, right? And then because with too much time, especially, and it's usually in relation to the number of dollars transacted. Like I spent a lot of money on something and then I didn't hear anything for a little while and I got anxious, right? And
Yes.
so, and keep in mind, most people are not in the middle of switching marketing teams while their business is thriving, right? Like if everything was going swimmingly.
You're not changing anything. I would keep my marketing firm if things were going great.
Yeah, it's true. So most people are not switching marketing teams while their business is thriving. They're generally at an inflection point within their practice, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I had a good marketing team for the task at hand. I was a single doctor practice, single location. My capacity was great. And I decided that I'm going to open it at de novo. And I'm opening it at de novo that's actually in a more competitive market, right? Market saturation is big. Maybe I don't think that this team that got me here can take me to the next level. So it could be a positive instance there, but it's still a transition, right? And so inflection points are when people feel, I think, most vulnerable. Like that's my opinion. And I think that when you're making that big step up, right? Or like, hey, I've like been picking the wrong vendors for so long and I need to get out of it and I'm gonna make an investment in a more substantial investment to get over this hump. I think you're meeting someone at a very like impressionable time. And so I think a lot of times, like when I was in an agency setting, we might feel really confident, right? That we got this, we do it all the time, we're gonna take care of it. But that sort of like maybe like confidence can be considered as like passive, like we're just like, yeah, it's fine, he's concerned, he's gonna be fine. But like I think that actually like really nurturing people through this process and communicating with them every step of the way. When we're working with practices as a fractional marketing officer, like right when we're actually trying to help them like manage these engagements, we're meeting with clients weekly. This is what we found out. This is what's the next step is. This is what you have to expect when you're waiting. While you're waiting, these are the things that we're going to work on. And I find that level of communication is just reassuring, right? Like, and people find a lot of peace of mind in that.
Oh, 100%. I think just across the board in anything that you're doing, the accountability factor, the reporting up, if you will, so that your leadership knows what's going on within their organization is key. You mentioned something interesting, the example of going from one location to opening a de novo, different market and so forth. As you know, we work with a lot of multi-site groups, and this is a question that comes up a lot. So each location is different, sometimes in different states, sometimes across country. And so the question comes up, if I'm working with an agency, so that's outsourced, and I have an internal team, Do you find, what's your suggestion there? Like, what's a pretty good mix of this is what my internal marketing team should look like if we're going to speak with, work with an agency? Is there an ideal, this is who you should have on your internal marketing team? Any boots on the ground suggestions? How would you structure that? Let's just say you're a 5-location medical aesthetics group. How would you structure your internal team, and how would they interact with my external agency?
If I had like $1 for every time I got a question about someone building their own marketing team, I would be able to quit my job. Like it'd be a good time. But jokes aside, there should be someone in a leadership capacity managing marketing function. Period. Like I think that like having one person who's like, call them whatever you want, marketing director, marketing coordinator, marketing manager, doesn't matter. You should have someone in the seat like managing and being responsible for marketing function. I think it's a no-brainer for any practice. 1 location, 5 locations, doesn't matter. I think that's important for a number of reasons. When a traditional practice setting, right? Like if you start to think about all of the people in a practice who have their like fingerprints on marketing, right? It's a pretty extensive list, and in my experience, it might look something like this. Doctor might be responsible for, or the practice owner, right? May be responsible for making the purchase. Like, hey, we're partnering with this vendor, or we're buying this product. Like, we are doing this thing. Very seldomly is that same person responsible for project management, right? So they come back from, I'm a med spa owner. I came back from AM Spa. I met a great marketing team. I'm excited about it. We've transacted with them. We're going to build a website, and they're going to take over all of our marketing services. They come back and give that to an office manager who maybe wants to be involved because that person also does like pays the bills and right, and also does maybe even does HR. So they want to be kind of know what's going on, and they want to own some of that function. But that's not who's going to help the agency with like any social media stuff. That might be like the front desk person who happens to be like the youngest person in the office, the most social media savvy, like if you will, right? And so now they're helping with it. But they can't get all the stuff alone, right? Like they're going to need content. So now you have your estheticians and your injectors help curating content. It's a multi-person responsibility, right? With that comes sort of like a variable, like a variable for failure. Like that really isn't anybody's fault, right? Because also like when I named off these people, none of them were marketing professionals, right? They're just doing their job. And so if I think of all the times that a project got given to someone where this became like a side mission or like another function of their job that they weren't really compensated for or had time for that matter, right? They weren't consulted about their bandwidth. There's an element of like where implementation sort of gets like fractured, right? And so I think that when you have someone in your practice, and this could be outsourced, like professionals like me, right, who come in and do this fractionally, it could be a full-time hire, totally up to the practice, right? Mm-hmm. But when I find that when you have someone who's really responsible for owning those initiatives, they generally stay on track, right? Because in a traditional setting, what at least I noticed in an agency setting, when those projects got, sort of split up or divvied up between multiple people, there was no one really responsible for ever moving it forward. And then where that becomes problematic as a practice owner is that you are like, you've signed up for a contract, you're paying a retainer. Agency every month collects 100% of that retainer, whether you're implementing it properly or not, right? Like you're paying the bill. And so billing never stops because we're using it less efficiently. And so I think there's like this sentiment that grows in the marketplace of like, oh, marketing companies are crooks, or I got oversold and they underdelivered. Does that happen? Absolutely, right? That does happen. But there's a huge percentage of the time where like the stuff that the practice was responsible for, like also just like didn't get done or managed appropriately, right? I was in an analysis for a practice the other day. Problem statement was they didn't rank as well as they wanted to, right? Like I've been paying this SEO team for 1.5 years. I'm not seeing improvement. I want to get rid of my SEO team. What do I do? We took a look at that for them. In the conversation, were there things that the marketing team we wish would have done better, like the quality of the reporting could have improved, or their communication wasn't up to where we think is acceptable? Like, yes, we found problems. But we also found that the practice owner had like a 7-month content assignment that never got approved, never reviewed, no revisions provided, right? And so, well, like we're holding the team accountable because we're paying 100% of the fee, but we're not really managing our side of the project, right? And so that's where I think having a marketing director or someone responsible for keeping things on track is so essential. And so when we're in those fractional engagements, we're reviewing that content, right? Like we're getting it back on time. We're asking for the deadlines. We're meeting the deadlines. The goal is I find that actually like if you want 100% of the intended result for 100% of the fee that you paid, then you have to be willing to meet the agency and like meet your side of the bargain, right? Like it's a deal, it's a partnership. It's not like, these people don't work for you, right? Like they work with you. And so there's an element of ownership that happens. I think outside of like a direct marketing report, like someone who's owning that function, I think that's where you get into a little bit of like a gray area of like, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, and so I think when we look at it, we think people go like, oh, well, if I want my SEO to work well, then I should just have my own SEO person in-house and they'll do it for me 100% of the time. Accurate, right? Accurate to think that. But what are the various functions of SEO that someone's going to accomplish for you? Is that person also a content writer? Is it a backlink specialist also? Is it someone who's like managing your citations? Like, do they have an assistant, right? Because if you look at an SEO specialist sort of nationally and you start to go like, oh, I want to build an SEO team, you might be hiring 2, 3, sometimes even 4 people. That could be cost prohibitive, right? And so when people go like, well, when should I take marketing in-house? My answer is generally don't. Like, don't do it. It's not cost effective, right? It's too hard to make our margins like if we're doing it that way. But there are functions that you can see brought in-house quite often that I think work well. Like we work with many practices who have like an internal resource to do social media. Like, hey, they're great video editors. They capture lots of content. They keep our social personalized and in real time. I see it happen a lot. But at the same time, like sometimes we see just because someone is in-house doesn't necessarily mean they're doing like fantastic work, right? Like, hey, being present but still not being like very effective is like now you just have a liability. And so I think a lot of it comes down to whether or not you need marketing in-house, comes down to how effective your marketing partner is. And this goes back to kind of the question you asked me about reporting. Like I do think reporting should come in. I think it should be in conjunction with a discussion, right? But I also think that that reporting should be able to correlate to things that actually translate to what you see in the practice. Like, so if you're getting a report that, let's say, like, hey, it's got a lot of spreadsheets on it and a lot of green and red arrows, and like, I don't really know what they're saying, but I think it's going well. My ongoing like kind of joke about this is I feel like most marketing relationships, they're sort of like measured off of vibes. Like, how do we feel about the relationship? Because they're telling me it's great, and my year over year I've grown 35%, so it must be working, right? Like that would be a reasonable like outcome, is that they're doing a good job. If you can't understand the reporting and correlate it to things in your office, then either the communication's bad or the reporting is bad. Like sometimes it's both. Like, but you should be able to look at that report and draw a straight line to be like, here's how this is impacting my practice.
Yeah, and great point. On the reporting, do you, or should my agency, or do you separate what I think of as vanity metrics? I'm thinking followers, impressions, and the like, as compared to, as you just mentioned, hey, this actually directly correlates with revenue by new patients, whatever it is that your goal is. How do you measure that, and how do you talk to people about that? Because I'm guilty of it too. I get very excited when we get more followers on LinkedIn or whatever, but I don't really know that it does anything other than gives me a nice little shot in the arm of excitement. What do you think of that?
So the talking point about like vanity metrics versus and proxy metrics versus like actual like tangible results data that's like revenue driven, huge talking point, right? Because to be honest, a lot of agencies like out there, like even the great ones, right? There's only so much they can report on, right? Like realistically, right? Like we can report on the improvement of rankings. We can show how that might correlate to an increase in traffic, right? Those meaningful, like we want to see that, right? But overall, what I like to tell people is like, hey, like when you're optimizing Google ads, for instance, right? And you're saying, well, hey, like people seem very interested in this ad, like it's getting lots of clicks, like lots of engagement. We're going to strategically reinvest. We're going to take more advertising dollars and put it there. That's what we would call making an optimization off of a proxy metrics, right? Like something that seemed interested in, we're going to build on that. And when I think of impressions and engagement and visibility, all of those things, when you're doing, they're like sort of indicators, right? That it could be going well. But what is like that end all be all? And we talked about this, right? It's booked appointments.
That's right.
Period, right? And so I find that like when we're looking at helping people understand like what is like the best mechanism for measuring success, it is new patient book leads. And there's ways to do that, right? There's ways to do that through third-party software integrations where you're actually measuring like, hey, the amount of new patient leads that are actually converting by marketing channel, right? That huge, humongous benefit. I love this because when I have people that we work with and we implement software like this, they come to me and they have these are the types of conversations that used to happen before. We started running these Google ads and all the leads just seem like tire kickers. Like, I don't think this is working. It's like, let's prove it. Let's actually open all of our Google Ads leads. We have access to all of the call recordings. We know what landing pages. We know what person booked them, right? And let's go through it and find out if these are really tire kickers. And a lot of times, like, it's not that someone's judgment is totally off. These are smart, decorated people, right? Like, a lot of them went to medical school. Like, they're well-accomplished people. And so when I look at it, it's like, it's not to be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But we find that a lot of narratives that are built about marketing are based on, like, these anecdotal experiences, right? Like, I went to the front desk person and I said, oh, we launched some Google ads. Let me know what the leads are. And they got a couple bad leads and now they're all bad, right? Like, they're all bad. And so
Recency bias.
Yes, exactly. And so I feel like when we really try to like hone in and understand like our lead management and reporting, this is where I think marketing and operations are so like closely aligned, right? Because if I come out and I say like, you're like, Josh, I want to increase our visibility in new patient leads, and I come up with this amazing campaign to do that, but then none of them actually transact, well, the new patient leads sort of start to look like impressions, right? Like, they're meaningless. And so I think like booked appointments, like when people are actually making transactions, that's where we see like meaningful impact in marketing. And so I want to know as a marketing professional, what lead sources are producing the highest conversion rate. I want to know what campaigns are producing the highest conversion rate. And then sometimes you start to get into the questions about like ROI, right? Slippery slope, like when we start talking about that, because it's dependent on service model and things like that. And so I start to look at it this way. When you are looking at like efficacy of a campaign in terms of booked appointments, it unlocks other perspectives, right? And so I'll be working with a medical aesthetics practice, and maybe they're trying to run an ad for hydrofacial. Low barrier to entry, like high conversion rate. How many people are booking a hydrofacial appointment and then not converting to treatment? Like, not very many, right? Doesn't happen. And so when you look at that, let's say you run a campaign for a few $1,000s a month. It's a lot of hydrofacials that you gotta get a lot of hydrofacials to start getting a good return on investment. So I can't tell you how many practices we work with where those campaigns actually break even, right? We generate a lot of appointments and we make back our ad spend. But disproportionately, we start to see those patients are like buying more medical grade skincare. They're opting into memberships. The lifetime value of those patients increases. And so I think sometimes too, like getting too fixated on like ROI without other context of how it impacts your practice, it could be dangerous, right? You could just like, nope, the campaign doesn't make money, turn it off, right? And then we see medical grade skincare go down about 10%. Seemed to be a problem, right? We should have thought about that. And so a huge portion of my job, I find, is actually just helping create that perspective and keep lines of communication open. And this is where I think having a dedicated marketing team and a dedicated marketing person in-house who can help you process through that data and make thoughtful, intentional decisions. We use those words a lot. We want to be intentional about this decision. We don't want to be emotional or impulsive, right? I can't tell you how many campaigns I thought this will never work based on my experience, right? And then the data proved me wrong. And so that's where being, I think, pragmatic and letting data be your guide is important. And that's really hard to do with someone who's on their second or third marketing company. Trust is hard.
Yeah, they have scars.
Exactly, right? And I think that overall, as you look at those dynamics, it can be hard to kind of like let data run its course and let's build a solid track record for what our trends are, and then let's make thoughtful decisions. People don't like moving slow, right?
No, not at all. I love the way that you're describing using the data. And furthermore, you mentioned it earlier, when you get the reporting, if I just get it and read it, great. But I like what you said earlier to tie it to what then you just said, which is you ought to have someone really walking you through that report, because the hydrofacial example was a fantastic one. If I just read the report, it's like, well, it broke even. Why did I do that? But if you're letting me know, by the way, these patients that came in from hydrofacial now bought skincare. Now, by the way, we're open to wider treatment planning. So they went to get whatever it is that they got above and beyond that. Now it starts becoming extremely profitable because there are tree branches that came off of that. So I love that. And it's like, you know, you see the data and then what is the story behind that data? We always like to understand that too. What are some, you mentioned a few things there. What are some, just for fun, common digital marketing mistakes that you see practices making?
I think the number one mistake, the number one mistake, period, is mismanaging ad spend. Ad spend. It's the number one thing that people don't look at. Like, I think that they allow to go unmeasured, right? The true return on ad spend is the number one missed opportunity. Because I think, like, think of where Google ads or like social media ads fit within like the funnel, right? Like of the journey, right? And like, honestly, there's like an intentionality there, right? Like someone who searches for, we just use hydrofacial example, someone who searches for hydrofacial, you know, Dallas right here, they want to know who does it. Someone who searches hydrofacial near me, that person's significantly further down the funnel looking to make a buying decision, right? Because like, hey, I want to know where this is convenient for me to like get hydrofacial, right? And so I think at the end of the day, there's like an element where we think like, okay, well, hey, if I don't have good SEO, if my organic rankings aren't there, then I'm obviously not generating more organic traffic or more organic leads. Some people go all the way to like, well, then SEO must not work. Like, no, it works if it works for you, right? Look if you are on 3-4 pages out in Google, right, for your core keywords, go look at the traffic levels for the people that are on the top 5 positions and then look at the difference. And I guarantee you that those people in the top 5 positions, 60% of their new leads are coming from organic search. SEO works.
I never go to page 2.
I never go to page 2. I mean, I do it depends on what I'm looking for, right? But like the average person doesn't. The drop off for click-through rate to a website is significant after the first page, right? People within those top 3 positions are generally getting the lion's share of the traffic, upwards of 35 to 40% of all the search traffic for those searches. So being high matters, right? But when we look at the mistake of ad spend, well, hey, if I don't have those positions, how can I artificially get that placement? Well, you can buy it. It's a pay-to-play environment, right? And so there's always these people out there go like, oh, do ads even work anymore? Like, yeah, Google funds their entire business model off of ad spend, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar company. It works. Like, trust me, like people buy it, right? So I think like, you know, the amount of times that I go into a practice and they go, oh, well, our SEO wasn't working, so we just doubled down on our ad spend, and now we spend, you know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 plus a month on ad spend, and we get new patients. I'm sure you do. Right? But really, it's not a good reason not to understand it. I mean, case in point example, I was in a practice this morning, spending significant advertising dollars on ad spend. The charge from the practice for me is like, we need to figure out how to cut ad spend. Our ad spend's outrageous, right? And when I went back to them and did that, I was like, here's the funny thing about that. Like, you're telling me we need to cut ad spend because you can't prove that it's working. Like, you can't prove that it doesn't work either, right? And you've developed this unhealthy relationship now where you're completely dependent on ad spend because you're not leveraging any other services. So we can't cut it today, right? And like, not without taking other measuring steps and looking at things. And so as we start to piece through their analytics, we find campaigns that have been running for 4 months, 5 months, that don't have a single conversion, right? And then you start to go like, wow, like, dang, if I actually just took the $6,000 out of this ad group and then put it into this campaign that was getting great cost per acquisition, you know, that's where other metrics start to come into play. How much search impression share are we getting? Like, meaning, how often are we showing up? Like, right? Because all of these things together, those proxy metrics tell a story. And at the end of the day, it's actually like new patient leads. Like, how many new patient leads did we get?
That's the goal.
And so, you know, you start running a multi-location medical aesthetics practice and you're trying to leverage esthetician services and injectables and lasers and all the things. Ad spend can get out of hand in a hurry. But you become fearful, right? Because you're at mercy of like, well, God, if I turn them off and then all my leads go away, what happens? And you can't do anything for a week, right? Like a week, 2 weeks, like, let's turn it off and then see if it works and then we'll just put it back, right? There's an element of patience that like has to be had with these things, right? It takes Google ads when you launch a new campaign. People might tell you 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. There's a learning model, right? Like where the ads do become more efficient over time. And that's why, you know, investing in, you know, people and technology to help you actually optimize off of new patient bookings instead of all these proxy metrics, it helps accelerate that learning process, right? And then ultimately creates better return on investment, like, which is all people really looking for, right? Like, I want more new patients and I want to spend as little as humanly possible doing it. Like, right? That's like that's the charge. And I just can't tell you that for ad spend, how many people just allow it to go totally unmeasured. Like they just go, well, I'm getting more new patients and those are the things I'm running ads on, so my ads are working great.
Wow.
Or even in reverse, I ran this ad group for a month and I didn't get new patients, so paid advertising doesn't work. It's cost too much money. Like I think so. Like I think it's for both argument of both sides. I think ad spend is the biggest pitfall opportunity because also when you're running, competitive, keywords, right, and you're running in a competitive market, those clicks add up, right? Like, and so even if your experience with it is like an anecdotal, like, oh, we answered this lead and it was bad, you're usually thinking, you're like, well, that cost me $35. And then you get kind of bummed and then you hang up the phone. And so I just think that ad spend is the biggest mistake. It's the biggest like mistake opportunity for our practices. It's where we're seeing that. And so especially when they're going through rapid growth into new markets and they don't have that organic placement and they need to get visibility in a hurry, they're often operating in a pay-to-play environment.
It's a great answer. I like the mistake opportunity, as you put it. Put on your crystal ball. Here we have it. Next 1 to 5 years, what trends should I expect to see in our space in healthcare marketing? What should I be looking for?
I think the biggest one right now, obviously, that everybody's talking about is artificial intelligence, right? And so I think, low-hanging fruit, right? People are using it to draft emails or content pages. You can generate content in real time. Like, why would I ever hire a real content writer, right? Like, and so artificial intelligence is going to be ever present. You're seeing its way. You're seeing it, like you started seeing it in, organic search with content development. Now people are using AI to like audit their website and look for opportunities for further optimization. You have people who are using it to like forecast social media trends to help like keep our content like relevant. You're seeing it in our lead management, like softwares and protocols. Like, and so it's not going anywhere, right? Walking around now and you're finding people give a few AI chat widgets to help people through like convert at a higher rate and like more effectively and efficiently. Mm-hmm. AI is not really going anywhere. Like, so like, I think like you're going to continue to see it become, you're going to continue to see AI make leaps, right? Like, and it's going to be factored into more of your products and more of the things that you buy. And you're going to find that AI is just going to maybe not like outright replace like people and their job functions, but it's going to like, we used to say like in an agency setting that I was at is like AI like will not like replace your job, but if you're not leveraging your AI to make your job more efficient, then you will get replaced, right? Because you're going to find someone that's just frankly more efficient and effective than you are, right? And so I think AI is up there. The other notable trend I would say is headless content management systems. Content management system, like largely defined, might be like what your website is built in. And so for most people, they're like, oh, I have a WordPress website, right? Or, hey, I have a Squarespace website. I built it myself. Traditionally, like websites that are built in WordPress and they're built in like other formats like that, the CMS, let's call it content management system, the CMS itself, that's where the content, right? So the written content, the images, anything on the website and how it's presented, like the layout and the actual website design, those are generally one thing, right? And that's going to, so think of your WordPress site as being one functional environment where your website is built. Headless content management systems, the content and the actual website or application using it, they're separated, right? And so when you look at it, like the head would be the front end. So that's going to be like where your content's displayed. That's going to be like the actual website or application that you have. And then the body, the back end, that's going to be actually where you create and manage your content. So the benefit of like a headless content management system, it's generally going to be flexibility, right? Because if the content management system is separated, right, you can edit and refine your content across a platform, which that's going to actually give you some creative control over the way your content's managed and articulated a little bit easier. But then also, it's going to find that you're not limited now by the content management system that you're using, right? Like, oh, hey, this doesn't work in WordPress, so we can't use it. Not anymore, right? Because you have your own content management system. And the content management system, it'll allow you to reuse content across multiple channels as you build it. And also by separating, you can actually distribute and display your content in faster time. So your websites are lighter. They're not as heavy to load, right? And so site speed starts to improve. So therefore, if that's an indicator for more positive rankings, that will benefit. Most agencies know about headless content management systems. Not many agencies are leveraging content management systems, like headless content management systems. And so I think that only really like it's not a cheap endeavor, right? And so, but I think that they're becoming more present. I think I had a conversation with a I had a conversation with a web developer friend of mine a few years ago, and he said 5 years, this is going to be standard. Like, this is what everybody's going to be doing. And we're about 3 years in, right? And we're starting to see it pop up. And so I think that that's something over the next couple of years will become commonplace. People start leveraging, like, oh, hey, our websites are faster, lighter, more agile. We can edit things in real time, spin up new location pages faster, right? More cost effective. It'll drive the cost of websites up, right? To buy them, like the entry level will go higher, but managing them will become more cost effective over time.
I had never heard of that until today.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I'll be keeping an eye on it as well to see if your buddy was accurate within. We have 2 more years to hit his timeline.
I think the other trend too, Ben, and not to like cut you off on that, I think the other trend that you really want to be on the lookout for, and this is something that I think in our industries, especially like something that I'm excited about, is the notion of HIPAA compliant search, right? And so I think there's a lot of companies popping up there right now, a lot of like tech development in this area about like, oh, truly HIPAA compliant search, right? Because you start to think about like search and advertising, you're like, well, we're processing a bunch of patient information and then we're redistributing ads. Like, isn't that technically a violation of like people's privacy, right? Like, it's a slippery slope. And the truth is it's kind of like an unregulated space, right? And so all it takes, however, is that like, hey, you get these companies that are popping up offering HIPAA compliant search, and enough people start talking about it, and then it becomes commonplace, and then it becomes expectation, right? And so not many agencies like fully offering that, like are leveraging it completely, but a lot of agencies who are working on it, right? Like they see it at the forefront. They're trying to be on like sort of the bleeding edge of what's expected of them. And so I think HIPAA compliant search is going to become a talking point over the next few years. I really do. I've had a lot of really fascinating conversations about that, and I wish that I had more like straight line answers to when it would matter. Like, but I think it's going to be huge.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And then the last kind of thing that I think is like a trend, if you will, is this notion. There's a marketing influencer out there. His name's Neil Patel. Focuses a lot on like SEO, paid ads, really big on TikTok, probably seen him. But he has been using this framework that he's discussing as sort of like SEO is not search engine optimization, it's search everywhere optimization, right? And so points to a lot of data that talks about, okay, like the decrease in sort of Google search share, right? Like most people don't know, and that in Q4, it dropped below 90% for the first time ever, right? And so where did those searchers go, right? Like, where did they go? Like, they might be using TikTok. They might be using things like Reddit, right? Like, they're diversifying, like, sort of their intake for searching information, like, right? And so it's not enough anymore to just have a good Google strategy. It's still the lion's share of opportunity, right? Like, I'm not, like, this is not a PSA for like neglecting your Google optimization. Like, I think it's super important.
Yeah, 90% still really high.
It's still a lot, right? But I do think that the people with diversified strategies and trying to capture more market opportunities and being more accessible is probably the best way to put it. Those people are really people that win in the long run. Like, I think it's like, how do we meet people where they're at?
Especially if people aren't on the other 10%.
Exactly, right? And so I think like there are people I know personally. There's people in this office I know that don't even use Google, right? They just search on ChatGPT, or they search on Reddit, or they search on TikTok to like get their information, right? They just bypass Google altogether.
Yeah.
That's becoming more common, right? And so I think search everywhere optimization. I think researching and trying to find teams that are like allowing other like content delivery systems to create meaningful traffic in return for their practice. I think that's humongous. I don't think that's even a 5-year window. I think it's like a right now, like that's happening.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as you were talking, I was even thinking about myself. I used to use Google to search anything almost exclusively, and now there's so many other tools. Instagram, I use that. I use ChatGPT, you mentioned, a few other modes. So, yeah, not surprising.
People love, what do I get when I meet really reputable practices? They're like, word of mouth. Word of mouth is key, right? 100%. Like I get a patient who came in from another patient, that person's a slam dunk. 100% conversion rate, 100%. Screw 90%, 100%, right? Well, what is that? Like that comes from what? Social proof, right? So social proof, like I want to see, like, yeah, you can talk to me about how great you are all day long, but as Alex Hormozi says, right, irrefutable proof that you are who you say you are. That comes from like the quality of your results, and that comes from people talking about it. Well, where are they talking about them, right? Talking on TikTok. Talking on Instagram, talking in Reddit threads, right? They're everywhere, right? And so I feel like the best way to capitalize on social proof is being diversified in sort of your overall or like organic search strategy. And that's a multi-channel effort.
Great points, Joshua. Thank you so much for coming on. If I want to get a hold of you, how would I do that?
Oh gosh, 1-800-SKY. You know, as a member of the Skytale team, obviously, I would just encourage you to go to our website and reach out to us about like any marketing needs that you have. We actually just put out an e-blast about sort of rolling out this new capability. We find that obviously whether your problem statement is big or small, one location, opening a de novo, 5 locations, expanding into multiple states, right? We have solutions for both privately owned practices and then even our platform-based clients. And so if you go to the website and actually reach out about, you know, getting more information about our marketing consulting services, we're here to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Skytale Insights. We hope you got some great nuggets out of today, and we would love it if you followed us. Have a good day.